We know autistic people can fixate on things, but what does it look like to be fixated on a person? I'm not talking about a celebrity or a character in a show. I'm talking about someone you're physically around, whether that's at school, church, work, etc. Hello, my mushrooms! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my cozy corner of the internet where I aim to spread autism awareness and hope through my story. Let's discuss a facet of special interests / hyperfixations that people don't often talk about. When a special interest is a real person in your life. Autistic women in particular are more likely to hyperfixate or form a special interest in a person than autistic men, because they are typically more socially motivated. Growing up, I almost always had a special interest in a person in my life. And while an autistic individual can have a special interest in a friend, I usually fixated on whoever I was crushing on at the time. To really get inside the mind of a fixated autistic person, you need a concrete example. And I may have just found the best representation of this phenomenon in film. Have you ever seen this movie? I first watched A Whisker Away several years ago, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why it made me feel so uncomfortable, like someone had been reading my journals. Watching it again recently with my husband, I now know why. It perfectly portrays how my special interests in people affect my brain and my life. I'm serious, it's uncanny how spot on it is. Quick disclaimer, I am not saying that any of the characters in this movie are intended to come off as autistic by the creators. I am simply discussing the traits that made me feel seen as an autistic woman. It's my opinion. That's it. A Whisker Away follows the storyline of a high school girl named Miyo, who has the ability to turn into a cat when she wears a magical mask she receives from the sinister mask seller. As she wrestles with her mother's abandonment, dislike of her stepmother and her father's obliviousness, and her crush's rejection of her, Miyo begins to spend more and more time as a cat. Eventually, the line between human and animal blur, and she risks being stuck as a cat forever. Now, the fantastical elements of this does not apply to autism in any real way, but the way that Miyo navigates her social life is all too familiar. Alright, that's all you get. Now go watch the movie, because it's time to discuss the traits and aspects of this movie that made me feel so utterly exposed. Let's break it down. To number 1, her thoughts and actions. Miyo approaches her social life with a certain flair. Despite not having very many friends and not being particularly well liked, she runs into the schoolyard with a smile on her face. Why? To see her classmate Hinode. Hinode? Oh my gosh, did I just pronounce it wrong? She has a rather unique way of greeting him. Every day, Miyo performs the Hinode sunrise. It's a unique greeting Miyo came up with herself, as an expression of love.
Is Hinode sunrise using the butt?
Would you knock it off?
In fact, she continuously expresses her adoration of him in odd ways. She yells to the world that Hinode's boiled potatoes are salty.
Hinode's boiled potatoes are salty!
Even though what she means is tasty. It's an affectionate way of comparing them to her mom's boiled potatoes. Though, if I was going to compliment someone's boiled potatoes, I would say,
"What excellent boiled potatoes. Many years since I've had such an exemplary vegetable."
Autistic people may not communicate their emotions the same way a neurotypical would. I know the more comfortable I've gotten in my relationship with my husband, the more uniquely expressive I've become. From beaming childlike smiles to wiggling with joy. The more he understands and even mirrors my expressions of love back to me, the more understood and loved I feel. But it's Miyo's inner dialogue that really gives her away. She constantly thinks about Hinode. When she sees him, everyone else disappears, literally turning into nondescript scarecrows. This is perfect imagery for what a fixation feels like in my mind. Ever since I can remember, I've had a crush on someone. Only one at a time, mind you. Whenever he was around, he was all I could think about. Everyone else became background noise. Now, imagine a very sketchy, fat old man gave me the ability to anonymously spend nearly unlimited time with my crush. In the form of a cat. Every day after school, Miyo visits Hinode as a cat, whom he affectionately named after his childhood dog, Taro. As Taro, Miyo only lets Hinode pet her, hissing at anyone else who tries, and stays by his side for hours. She's even more expressive as Taro, beaming at him and even leaping off a roof into his arms. One might even say she's a little more unmasked. I think this is a really good parallel to just how much time an autistic person spends talking and thinking about their special interest. When I say all the time, I mean it literally. Almost every journal entry as a teenager was about my crush. Writing love letters, taping their yearbook pictures into a locked diary, creating passwords with their initials, and recording conversations on my phone just so I can hear their voice later on too. All indications of an intense fixation. One day, Miyo overhears some of her classmates belittle Hinode behind his back, assuming terrible things about him that aren't true. She gets so upset about it that she forgets she's not a cat for a moment and jumps off a second-story balcony to defend Hinode's honor. This reminds me of the time I overheard a gaggle of girls call my crush names behind his back. I felt white-hot rage that I didn't understand burn through me. I don't really know the best way to describe it, but I don't think that level of anger is exactly normal. After Miyo jumps off a second-story balcony, Hinode asks if she's okay and shares his lunch with her. She is overjoyed for the rest of the day. Once she is home and alone in her bedroom, she absolutely loses it, unable to contain her joy. This is a perfect example of autistic joy, which is an intense, all-encompassing feeling of happiness and excitement that some autistic people experience. Some might jump up and down, flap their hands, squeal with joy, or, in my case, it's a wonderfully childlike expression of joy that is often stunted by the autistic person themselves for fear of being belittled by others. You know for a fact that Miyo would not have freaked out like that had there been another soul around. The only other note I want to make on this point is Miyo's intense reaction to Hinode's rejection. Most heartbroken girls would cry and go through a short period of grief or situational depression. But when Hinode publicly breaks her heart, that ass, Miyo's world shatters. She decides that her life would be happier spent as a cat, because at least Hinode loves Taro.
I don't care anymore. Kaoru, Hinako, Dad, Mom. I don't care if they all hate me. Doesn't matter. Hinode is all I need. I just want to hear him say I like you. I want to hear him say I love you.
Now, I understand that Miyo struggles with depression throughout this entire movie, but even so, this is a very strong reaction to heartbreak, and it brings up an interesting point. Autistic women, in particular, often take longer to recover from heartbreak compared to neurotypical women. This is because autistic women might experience emotions more deeply, have a tendency to ruminate, and have challenges with processing major life changes. The end of a relationship, even one that doesn't officially exist, can feel traumatic for many autistic individuals. This is often made more challenging when an autistic woman has a special interest in their partner, making the process of emotional detachment slower and more painful. I went through the exact same thing when I was rejected by one of my special interests. It felt like my world had completely shattered. The situational depression lasted a lot longer than typical heartbreak depression, and we hadn't even been official boyfriend and girlfriend. Thankfully, though, I pulled through and found someone who adores me just a few years later. Number 2. How others perceive her actions. Miyo is known as Muge by her classmates, which translates to indefinitely mysterious in Japanese, or Miss Ultra Gaga and eccentric in the English dub. This gives a pretty clear indication that Miyo doesn't fit in with her peers. The intensity and unique expression of Miyo's crush on Hinode isn't normal. Yori, Miyo's one and only friend, even says that Miyo sounds like a stalker at one point.
You're really starting to sound like a true stalker.
And I don't know how many of you can relate with that particular line, but I can. I am not a stalker, but I drove by my crush's house a couple of times. There was also this one time I may have followed his family's car to Walmart after school and even canceled an appointment I had that day just for the chance of seeing him. I'm not sharing this with you because I'm particularly proud of these actions. I'd honestly rather not share them at all. I just want to help you understand the intensity of a special interest. Understanding how intense they really are can help you navigate the situation with grace if an autistic teen in your life is going through this. That being said, it is still a difficult situation, so parents, I'm going to specifically speak to you for this next part. Parenting an autistic child comes with a unique set of challenges that both the parents and the autistic child themselves are often unprepared to deal with. And this subject in particular is really hard to give advice on, because not only have I been an autistic child, but I'm a married adult who can easily imagine myself parenting my own autistic child. So I am going to tell you what I would do as the parent of an autistic child who knows firsthand how difficult managing autistic special interests in people can be. I would start by getting them diagnosed with ASD, if possible, so I can have conversations with them about why their emotions are so intense. Even as a child, I knew the intensity of my emotions wasn't normal for girls my age. The only explanation my adorable little brain could come up with at the time was that God must have imparted some of his love for said person onto me. Yeah, that's not how that works. And it only confused me more and later caused issues with my relationship with God. But without knowing that I was autistic, there was no reasonable explanation for my emotions. By getting my child diagnosed, I can provide a space where they can be kind to themselves, avoid potential confusion as to why they are the way they are, and explain that it's okay to feel that deeply. It's out of their control. Number 2. Provide support before guidance. I know this is easier said than done, but I would aim to support my child's special interest before guiding them towards the direction I think is best for them. That doesn't mean that guidance isn't important, because it 100% is, but your child needs to know that you are on their side before they can absorb your guidance. If they feel like you don't understand or accept their special interests, they will clam up and never tell you anything more about it. It's a very lonely and frankly dangerous experience, keeping everything that brings you so much joy and oftentimes pain to yourself. When I was a little girl, my mom told me that I was too young to feel that strongly for someone. The next time I shared my special interest in my crush with her, I was almost 20 years old and sobbing on my bed, unable to hide the pain of rejection and abuse that I had carried around for 6 months. I badly needed my parents' guidance, but my ears were closed to their advice because I felt like they would never understand or support my special interests. And hear me, support does not necessarily equal agreement. You can support someone you don't agree with. That's how families and friendships survive, because you will never agree with someone 100% of the time, but you do love them, so there is a balance there. And for parents, that balance is even harder to find, because it's not only their job to love their child, but to lead and protect them. I would strive to be as open as I could be with my child, and encourage them to share their emotions and what's going on in their relationships. If I had been open with my family about what had happened between one of my special interests and I, they could have spotted the abuse and helped me get out. It's not always on the parents, though. You need to be open and honest with the people who care about you. Even if you feel misunderstood, it's better than being abused. Relationships can turn abusive very quickly, and sometimes very subtly. Autistic people aren't usually that good at spotting these subtleties, making them easier targets for abusers. I didn't even truly understand what happened until my husband read my journals with me and compared me to a beaten puppy emotionally, approaching with the uncertainty of whether or not it would be pet or kicked. He told me, "That's abuse. You didn't deserve that." Special interests in people need accountability for this reason. By the way, I am by no means ever bashing my parents when I give advice to parents or share parts of my story that didn't go so well. That's how we learn. My parents are awesome, and they did their best. When I was 15 years old, my dad gave me a letter and a ring, which I still wear every day. Inscribed on it is Proverbs 4:23, which reads, "Guard your heart above all else, for it is the wellspring of life." That is definitely something I would repeat with my children. Number 3. Provide gentle guidance. In the movie, Miyo finds balance when she remembers that a lot of people care about her. She starts spending time with them, and finds peace by not hiding from her family and by balancing her relationships. This doesn't mean that she's less fixated on Hinode, only that she makes space in her mind and life for her other loved ones. Much like my mom did for me, I would encourage my autistic child to find balance in their relationships. Don't expect it to look exactly like neurotypical balance though, because it won't. Like most autistic people, losing myself and my special interest, or crush, happened a lot. So when Gavin walked into my life, my husband, I made sure to approach my relationship with him a little differently than I had previous relationships in the past. This meant purposing to spend time with family outside of the time I was with Gavin. Even though I spent about every other day by Gavin's side, I ended up balancing both family and boyfriend well. All of this is obviously easier said than done. There is nothing easy about being a parent or being autistic. Relationships are sticky, and they ebb and flow with how circumstances are handled by both parties. If you have an autistic child, I hope these tips help you have a closer relationship with them. And that wraps it up for today's video. By the way, you guys should check out my website, because my sister helped me redesign it, and it is fabulous. Most videos are blogs first, but not every blog becomes a video. So if you're interested in more content from me, I would recommend subscribing to my blog too. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to become a mushroom among wildflowers, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, or that blog I just mentioned. And I'll see you in the next one.